Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us this evening. My name is Elena with Napa Book Mine. I am so happy to invite Dave Ross tonight, joining us from, I don't know where you are. Where are you, Dave? On the East Coast, right?
I'm from the Jersey Shore.
Jersey Shore, joining us tonight from the Jersey Shore where it's late. So thank you for staying up late with us this evening. David Ross is a medical sales representative by day and a band player tarot card reader by night. He created a business called Tarot and Tequila, where he reads cards for people in restaurants and bars or any place that serves tequila. His spiritual journey started 25 years ago when he was a tourist cruising a toy store in Santa Fe, New Mexico, where on a lark he bought a tiny tarot deck. He quickly decided that he was going to learn about tarot and form connections with other people to help them progress spiritually. Ross lives on the Jersey Shore with his wife and 2 children, and he is the author of our book tonight, Tarot and Tequila. Thank you so much for joining us, Dave.
Thank you.
I'm going to go ahead and mute myself, and we're going to get that video rolling so we can learn how to make this delicious cocktail. Everyone enjoy.
Hi everybody, my name is Dave Ross and I'm the author of Tarot and Tequila, a book where we pair cocktails with tarot cards. I'd like to personally welcome everyone today to our little presentation where I make one of the drinks from the book, the Empress. So I bet you're all wondering, what could tarot cards and cocktails have in common? Or what would inspire a crossover book like Tarot and Tequila? Well, 2 of my biggest passions are tarot cards and tequila. If I was out at a bar or something, I'd usually just have a glass of tequila on the rocks or go to a nice spicy margarita. But how they combined is, I always wanted to start a business reading tarot cards. And most often I found that they're at these small little stores that sell crystals and incense and whatnot. But why not bring it to a larger crowd? So I was thinking bars and restaurants. So we started holding these really great events where we would have like musicians play and we would have drink specials with tequila, and we would start naming the drinks after tarot cards because I'd be reading tarot cards at the event anyway. From those events, got inspired to write the book Tarot and Tequila. So in this book, out of the 78 tarot cards, there are 40 completely new original mixed drink cocktails that hopefully you will enjoy. Okay, so let's get to it. The Empress Cocktail is a simple cocktail that I think would be perfect for like a Mother's Day event. It would replace a typical mimosa, right? So let's get started. So first of all, we're gonna have a shaker filled with ice. I got a couple different size jiggers here to make my life a little easier. And let's start with a lime. Basically, we're gonna cut and use the juice of half a lime. And that's gonna go right into the shaker. So the lime's super important because it's gonna cut the sweetness of the mango nectar. I could probably drink mango nectar all by itself, but the lime, that's why that's necessary. So let's take that. We're done with the lime. We only need to use half of it. Then we're gonna take 2 ounces of mango nectar. So I'm gonna just pour this right into the little 2-ounce shot. Now let me just also say, as you're making this is a very light morning, afternoon cocktail. I mean, you could drink it whenever you'd like, but to me, this is a very light, very low on the alcohol cocktail. If you want to increase the amounts of the alcohol in here, and the amount, if you want to make a pitcher, of course, that's up to you. So then we're gonna take 1.5 ounces of Reposado tequila. Añejo, I'm using Cabo Wabo here. And it goes right in with the lime juice and the mango nectar. Okay. It's really those ingredients, and we just shake it to get the lime juice mixed with the mango, mixed with the tequila. Then what we're gonna do is we're gonna strain it into a wine glass. We're gonna put some more ice in there. Of course, I can't get them all to go in at the same time. So this is gonna be in a basic wine glass. I use a very large wine glass. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna top it off with about 4 ounces of a sparkling wine. And in this case, I'm just using Prosecco. And it's funny because these are the small bottles, so I don't have to pop anything. And you can just top that off right there. 1, 2, 3, 4. And there is your Empress Cocktail. So cheers.
Even with the sound issues, that drink looked amazing. And I wish that I had made it right now. So I'm going to shut up and let David tell us more about his work.
So yeah, I mean, I've been reading tarot cards for about 25 years, and it did start as like one of those things where, why would someone like me just get a tarot deck out of the blue? And I've started and stopped many things in my life, and for some reason this just called to me. And when I got this very small miniature deck of 78 individual painted tarot cards, I just couldn't stop diving in. I kept buying book after book after book after book, and I've accumulated quite a tarot library. And I'm still buying books because the journey is still ongoing. But in my 25 years or so of reading tarot cards, there were many times where I'd stop, put the cards down. Maybe I'd freak myself out. Maybe I didn't really understand. Maybe the cards were being a little too accurate. Maybe I wasn't sure of what my true potential was. And it's taken me a long time to really understand that, your cards are a mirror of you. So if you bring light and you want to do good and you want to help people, then those cards are always going to be positive. So even the scariest of tarot cards, from what the media says or whatnot, to me are life lessons and, moments where we can grow. So when I use tarot cards, when I read for people, it's definitely like a tarot therapy lesson. I don't claim to be psychic. What I do is I'm an intuitive empath. I've always had these very deep feelings when I'd walk into a room, and they weren't always my own. I always pick up on this energy, and I didn't really understand it. I always was like, not picked on, but like looked at it as like, well, why are you so overly sensitive? Why would you cry over something like this? And because it wasn't even me that I was feeling upset about. It was other things, other people in their lives. And it's taken me a long time to really come into my own as the gifts that I can provide with tarot. And the beautiful thing about tarot is there's so many different people that read it, and they all have their unique gifts. And I don't claim to be the right one. You know, like I will have my tarot cards read by true psychic mediums or people that do the same thing as me. Because if you have 10 tarot readers and they all give you the same tarot spread, you're all going to get 10 different readings. So I've been doing that for a long time. It was only maybe a couple years ago where we started doing these tarot and tequila events when I started my business. I wanted to make it more accessible to both men and women. I read probably 90% to women. And I was thinking, like, I don't know, like I'm a guy and I'm married, I have a couple kids, I'm interested in tarot. Why aren't there more people like me out there? So bringing this idea into bars and restaurants where men and women equally would both be, and you have live music, and you could make drink cocktails where, you know, we would just have fun. Like, you know, you get like a tequila company like Milagro to come in and promote their tequila, and then you do specials, and you know, maybe you have like a drink called the Magician, and instead of being $15, you make it $7, and that's the drink for the night. And I was talking to some people at one of my events, and they're like, you know, this would be a great book idea. And at the time, I was like, yeah, okay, I'm going to write a book. You know, I'm a medical sales representative. You know, I have 2 kids, married for 20 years. How do I have time to write a book? And it so happened that I tried, and it got denied, of course, because, you know, what do I think I was going to get a book like right off the bat? And it was told that, you know, I write too poetic. You know, my style was not really like an author's style. So I was like, okay, you know, being a Leo and being rebellious and going through life as a teenager my whole life, it's a little tiring, but I've learned to accept it. I tried writing a book based on tarot poetry. So I literally have 78 poems of each tarot card as my way of saying I could write my own damn book the way I want to write it. But then a very good friend of me said, well, whatever happened to the initial book idea of Tarot and Tequila, where you're doing a recipe book? I think that was a really good idea. And she really motivated me to redo it. And I simplified it and I made my language less poetic. And I gave it more of a focus. And I used the pandemic where a lot of time I was working from home because I couldn't go into doctor's offices because everyone was obviously afraid. I made myself find a publisher. I just gave myself that intention. I just focused and focused and focused, and I found it. And it just so happened to line up, and everything lined up with, and they liked the idea of Tarot and Tequila as a recipe book. So Tarot Tequila, what it is, it's kind of like a fun, I would like to think it's a fun book where you could learn how to read tarot cards. There's a basic definition and a basic reverse definition. And then there are tequila-inspired definitions where I kind of have a little fun with it to incorporate the tarot cards as like, what would a night be out on the town? Or for someone that worked in the restaurant or bar industry. And there's like little scenarios. So if someone that really has trouble understanding tarot or reading the definitions and just it not resonating, this might be a very easier way for someone to resonate or to identify with cards just by making it very accessible to, hey, a night out on the town. I try not to, you know, talk about like excessive drinking or anything like that. It's just a very tongue-in-cheek thing that I thought of Tarot and Tequila, 2 things that I've always liked. Why not? People are going to remember the name. So out of the 78 cards of the tarot deck, we decided on 40 drink recipes. So I had to give every major arcana card a recipe because I felt like the larger, more important cards were very deserving of their own recipe. And then we kind of pick and choose, and we had about the same number of each minor arcana suit. And we took it from there. So if there was like about 5 from each deck, like the wands and the swords and the pentacles, you know, there'd be like 5 from every one. And I'd like to think that we did the cards justice. There was thought process going back and forth with the bartenders that I worked with. I would tell them what the cards were about. I'd give them ideas and drink recipes and flavors that were associated with astrological signs and things like that. So there were something going in. So for example, the Empress card that you just saw the video of, that the Empress is the matriarch of the tarot deck, right? She's the mom. She speaks of abundance and beauty and creation and all these great things. It's a very loving and welcoming card, the tarot. So why not make a drink that is representative of celebrating a mom? And then I started thinking about, well, you know what? It's a great idea to make like a mimosa. I mean, in my family, we have mimosas for certain things like maybe Easter or, you know, Mother's Day, like a brunch or something like that. And it just fit. So then me and one of the bartenders, Ryan, it's a good friend of mine, we were thinking, well, this makes perfect sense. So why don't we take a mimosa and just kind of turn it on its ass and make it a little more Empress-like, and it would fit the same needs and the same goals of what a basic mimosa is. So I think, you know, we were happy with the way that that came out. There's a lot of drinks like, you know, we'll take the Devil, for example. How is the Devil not going to be a spicy margarita? I mean, come on, you have your jalapeno infused tequila, and then you add a little mezcal as an extra kick. I want a peppercorn rimmed glass. I want that smoky flavor. I want you to indulge a little bit. You know, maybe you go a little extra spicy than you normally go. So that's a really good definition of like the Devil cocktail. And there are 40 of them, and there's some pretty interesting takes on some drinks that you already know, and there's some completely original ones. So that's the idea with Tarot Tequila as the book. It's really a guide that you can learn how to read tarot with, but it's also a cocktail recipe book that I think, you know, try to think is original anyway. It's so hard to come up with original ideas these days. But that's really the, you know, nuts and bolts of it. So I don't know what else I could talk about, but I'd love to like answer questions or things like that. I have a tarot deck on the ready. I was going to do like a collective reading. Maybe I could pull a couple cards. I don't know, but I'd rather probably just turn it into like a question and answer. So Flana, if you're out there, you know, save me from just rambling on more.
No, it's never a ramble when it's interesting, is the nice thing.
Shucks.
Well, if anybody has anything they want to chat about or talk or ask Dave about, you know, I feel like tarot is one of those things that a lot of people do a little bit, but very few people do a lot of and really know a lot about it. So we have kind of an expert here. So if anybody is really interested in learning a bit more about it, now's your chance. Go for it. I have questions, but I'm not going to start with them because that's selfish.
It's not selfish if no one else is talking.
I have one.
Go for it.
So I have to confess, I knew absolutely nothing about tarot whatsoever. And I'm also a scientist. So I have a very hard time buying into the psychic thing. So that's one of the reasons why I was really intrigued by your book and the talk. And I also happen to love booze and I love tequila. And my husband absolutely loves tequila. But I'm kind of curious, like, what is your goal then? When you're reading tarot for someone, what's your primary goal then? Because, you know, you're not a psychic. And so I'm just kind of curious about what your intentions are when you do readings.
Excellent. No, that's a great question because there's many different tarot readers and some claim to be able to do things that I definitely do not claim to be able to do. Like I said before, I think everyone's intuitive. All right. I think that women are more intuitive than men. Okay. You always heard of women's intuition. You have that feeling in your gut, you know. I've always been empathic where I pick up on way more. I'd like to think I pick up on energy. So if I was reading your cards and we were sitting close together and I was doing 10 cards with you, I really get engulfed with your energy, with how you are presenting yourself to me. Now, you could, as a scientist, say it's a whole different thing, where you're trying to break it down to body language, you know, or something like that. But to me, I'm feeling that body language. Like if you're having a hard time, I want to cry with you. If you're having a great time, I want to laugh with you. It's really hard to shake and connect and disconnect that energy when I've read somebody. I've made some very good friends through reading tarot cards, because I feel like for that half hour, 45 minutes, or even if I'm doing like speed readings, like 5-10 minutes a pop, I am connected with that person. I know. So it's almost like, okay, so here I'm reading your cards. I ask people what they would like to know about, because I am not about to just ramble on and give them, you know, news that they could then worry about or something. So I'd say, especially if you're a first-time tarot reader, okay, I mean, getting a tarot reading, I would say, is there something you'd like to know about? So if you want to keep things very safe, maybe you ask about your job. Maybe you ask about something that you're really not worried about. And then we just start talking from there. I think the cards will come out and say what you don't want to say. And that's them, that's not me. You know, that's just the way that the universe presents itself. And then we just take it from there. But I do that in a sense where, for example, the media has made a card like the death card be a very bad card. It's very scary. You're watching a movie, the death card comes up, there's some ominous music playing, and then 5 minutes later, someone dies, and they're like, oh, the death card. For a tarot reader, the death card is transformative. It's change. It's you graduating from college. It's you retiring. It's you getting married. It's you having a baby. It's anything that's big like that. And if the death card was reversed, it means that you know you have to make a change, yet you're not ready to make a change. Now, do I know that this death card is for you? I mean, it's coming up for you. I'm hoping it's going to resonate. If it doesn't resonate, I'll ask you some questions. Was there any part of your life that this resonates with? And then usually through some questions and back and forth, we get somewhere. And then it really turns out to be like this very therapeutic tarot session. That's how I do it, kind of like therapy. There are some psychics out there that will say, oh, you're going to have twins, you're going to get divorced. I don't do that. Okay. I could try to do that, but I feel like that is wrong. I like helping people solve problems because I also believe in karma. I don't need any karma coming back and biting me on the behind. All right. I will never tell you if you come in asking that you want to get a divorce. I will never tell you to get a divorce. I will say that the cards are screaming that you need to get a divorce. I will never say get a divorce. I will say, listen, I'm definitely picking up on some energy here where you're not happy. Clearly, that's from body language, right? But I'm also getting a lot more from the way the cards are coming out if they're mirroring that body language. And then I'll say, do you want, I mean, is it something that you want out of? Do you need to talk to? I mean, I definitely think that communications, and I'll give like generic advice. You guys should speak to a counselor. You should do this, because I'm not about to change this person's life, you know, because some people really do. They take a lot of stock into this. And I try to keep it like entertainment, but you can really figure out a lot about yourselves through a basic tarot reading that you might not be able to figure out after years of therapy. It's just what resonates, especially if the person's spiritual rather than religious or scientific. So it might not be for everybody, Claire, but I think that if you start out thinking it's entertainment, you go into it with an open mind, and you have someone that's only going to bring the light and they're not going to out to scam you or do something like that, I think overall it'll be a very positive experience for you.
Thanks. Yeah, I like the mindset of this being a prompt for greater awareness of what's going on. And then that leads into the ability then to work through whatever issues, if they are issues you might have. But yeah, I kind of like, I guess I like the thought of it bringing awareness. Yeah, thanks.
Oh, you're welcome. I was never really brought up with any specific religion either. And I know that, and I tend to believe in science. Science is true. As I say, science is real, as I say. But I definitely think there's an energy out there. that energy is something that is unexplained. And whether it's religious energy or whether it's a million religions, they're all little right. And I definitely believe there's something out there. So I'm trying to tap into that. That's it.
Thanks, Claire. That was great. And thank you, Dave, for such a wonderful explanation.
I try.
Well, I'm going to ask, I'm interested in the history of tarot. Because I'm the buyer for our stores. And so I look through and I see all these tarot decks. And there are ones that will pop up and say like the original historical, this is a facsimile edition of like the Rider-Waite tarot or stuff like that. And it makes me realize that I kind of always assumed that it was a very ancient, I mean, not maybe ancient, but a really old practice. But not really, I know nothing about that. I'm curious if you know much about it, if you could teach us a little about the history of it.
Well, the origins are very unknown. And that's one of the things that we don't know. I mean, are they from Egyptian? I mean, there's some Egyptian decks, there's symbols. I mean, symbols are very powerful. I think the standard Rider-Waite-Smith deck, the deck that everybody knows, like if you want to start using tarot, you go to this deck because the symbols are the symbols that you are going to be familiar with from pictures in a book, from pictures on a movie or something like that. I think that's a very safe place to start. Now, where those originate, those artists, where they gathered their information from, that's a big, like, I mean, you can talk to a tarot historian. I am not that person. They will go way back and they will explain to you, well, this came from this came to this. I know that tarot is way beyond me, the mysteries of the universe and where those symbols came from and how it all began. I tend to be more about the modern take of it, where I was like, okay, there are a million tarot decks now. There are two types. If you wanted to create your own tarot deck, there is a deck called the Robin Wood deck, which I use a lot, okay? And there's the Chariot. The Chariot means moving forward, willpower, drive. If you get this card in a reading, it's major success. So I just pulled this card for you, so congratulations. But this does not look too far off from the basic Rider-Waite-Smith deck, all right? Now, the Sugar Skull deck that me and publishing house we created is a Rider-Waite inspired deck where you will have those images, but then we incorporated sugar skulls and everything that was kind of like inspired with the Southwest and like cowboys and that whole vibe to it. There are indie decks out there that have no comparison to Rider-Waite at all. And you're going off the intuition of the cards. And that's why when some people say, hey, do I need to receive a tarot deck as a gift? You know, is it not going to work if I don't? I'm like, well, what if someone gets you a gift and you don't resonate with the cards? And then the cards just sit on your freaking desk forever and you don't use them because you don't like them. I feel like you need to go buy your own deck. You need to connect with your own deck, whether it's a Rider-Waite inspired deck or whether it's a complete independent artist deck that's beautiful. And there's so many like on Kickstarter that you could help promote. You kick in a couple $100, whatever, and they give you like a signed deck and all this other cool little merch with it. But I'm all about that. But the mysteries of tarot, I mean, are super old. I just don't know, like, and you know what's weird with me? Like in history class in like high school, I would always fall asleep in history. It was like, I think it was, but it wasn't not necessarily my fault, I think, because it was after gym class. I was tired. I mean, what were they thinking? I mean, didn't they know that I was like too busy thinking about other things anyway? And now you add like, you know, now I'm tired. Or it was like after lunch. It was like one of those things, either way. But I was never interested in so much the history. And they also say, because I'm a Leo, Leos we're very bad learners, but we're very good teachers. And I always thought, Well, how is that right? Don't you have to learn something to be able to teach it? But I guess I mean, not if it's intuitive, not if you inherently know it. Except my kids, if they tell me they inherently know something, I'll call them out on it. But for me, of course, it's okay. I don't know.
Of course, of course.
Yeah.
So Michelle is curious if you could tell us about a really memorable tarot reading that you've done.
There's a lot of them. I'll tell you some because you're not giving away anyone's personal information or anything like that. I remember back in like the early 2000s, I was called to read a doctor's office, the medical sales for a holiday party. And they had a bunch of people at this party, and I was just reading one after the other. And it's amazing what people will tell you as a tarot reader, and they don't know you. I've had someone come down, sit right down at my table without even trying to get any kind of like connection with me, saying like, listen, I'm having an affair on my wife. First thing they say is they sit down. I want to know if I'm making the right decision. And then they'll go into it and they'll say some things like, my wife's a good person, but this woman is, it's a different connection. And it throws me off because the guy that I'm looking at, I don't like his energy. And not because he said that, because there could be many situations where a person could have an affair that just, fell out of love or whatever and didn't choose to do the right, whatever it is. But in this particular case, this guy came across as a pompous ass to me. I didn't like him. And the cards were saying that his wife was a very good person. It did seem also that the cards were saying that there was very, very, there was a big disconnect going on. And I had to be very careful because I never am going to say, yeah, leave your wife. I'm never going to say that. I was saying that before. I'll never say get a divorce. I'll never say to do this. I'll never, you have to feel what's right for you. But with this guy, I felt like I was defending his wife because the reading presented his wife in a very nice way. And I said, I understand that there's no disconnect. I understand that there's not much of a connection there anymore, but she's still a really good person. Don't you think that it would be smart to maybe be able to communicate with this person and try to fix what you have? Now, that might have been very naive of me to say, but that's what the cards wanted me to say. It's just really funny how people will come to you, they don't know you, and even though it's a small world, and you never know who you're going to read, especially, if it's in the same town, because now I'm reading people in different countries and everything like that, it's a pretty safe bet we're not going to run into each other on the street. But if I'm like reading out of a store or a restaurant or a bar, and someone just comes up to me and says, listen, I have 4 kids and my marriage is awful, and should I get a divorce? It happens more than you would think. There's a lot of really unhappy people out there. And it's funny because we're all the same too. Some people just will put up with other things more than other people, and some people just settle for things, and some people work and work and work at getting their lives the way they want them to. I don't judge anybody, but it is funny how people will just open up and say things like that. And at first I was very taken aback. Now nothing will shock me anymore at all. There's a lot of stories though. Yeah.
I believe that. I mean, to me, hearing you talk about it and the way some people approach it, it sounds like a lot of people who should be in therapy are, they because it's sort of like, or like people who use Ouija boards, and it's like a safe way to divulge your deepest, darkest secrets because you really should be talking to somebody about them, but for some reason you're afraid to or uncomfortable with it or don't want to, and that the tarot provides an outlet for a lot of these people who could maybe use a healthy outlet for something.
But how's this for throwing things up on its rear end? Okay, you have I believe in therapy. I do. Okay, I've spoken to people in my life when I've been going through some hard times. Okay, I have anxiety issues. I have no problem saying that to people. But some people will never go to therapy because they just, whatever, their pride gets in the way, or they just think that it's not for them, whatever reason. But yet they'll be the first in line at like a $5 or $10 tarot reading too. And they will listen intently to what you have to say when they're never going to go sit down and, like, you know, find an actual therapist. And who's to say they're right or they're wrong? You know, if that's what they believe in, I mean, I don't know, but I never meant to do this as an adjunct to therapy. I just feel for myself, even when I read cards for people and there's a connection there, I'm almost going through a therapeutic process of myself. Like, I'm growing every time. I'm learning from them. I'm like, oh my God, I understand what you're talking about. I understand what you're going through. This resonates to me to some degree, you know. I won't bring that up all the time, but we're all the same. We're all the same. And I tell everybody that, you know, you go through things, dark things. A lot of other people have gone through the same things. So there should be more connection, not so much division. And yeah, but I mean, how many things can you talk about in a tarot reading, right? You got love, you got work, you got family, you got money. There's not weird other things that people want to know about. It's usually those things. I don't know.
I have another question.
Sure.
Have you ever done readings virtually? So during the pandemic, when it's all about Zoom, and how do you deal with that then? Because you mentioned that you feel energy just by being next to or close to someone. So how do you deal with that over Zoom or
Yeah.
Teams or whatever you use?
That's a great question. I mean, I've been connecting with your energy since I've been seeing you. So for me, it's easy. It's like we could make a screen the size of my, monitor, and it's just like we're in the same room. I'm connecting with you. I feel it. It doesn't have to be there. And what I've learned is that, you know, are you familiar with Reiki at all? Now people are doing Reiki virtually. And they're sitting there going like this on the screen. And I'm like, how the blank are you doing that?
Weird. Yeah.
I go, but how are you? And they will argue and they will say, well, energy is energy. You know, if you can't get to me and I'm a Reiki master, you know, and you live in Australia and I live in New Jersey, you know, it's the same. Now, I don't know if I buy into that, but then again, I'm not a Reiki master. But I can tell you the cards don't know where you are. You know, I'm reading with you and I can see you. I can see the expressions on your face. I can kind of mimic that. I can kind of feel how you're feeling. And the cards are 78 tarot cards in front and reverse position, forward and reverse position in 10 different spaces, future, past, things that can help you, strengths that you need to know about, potentials, and all these things I know about the right positions. They're going to hopefully resonate with you and the energy. And if you go, oh my God, that's it. And I'll be like, okay, let's focus on that. And then we go from there. We know that that's hitting and you're going to walk away with some type of resonating experience. It's very rare that now I will have someone being like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I go, okay, and I mean, it's fine if it happens. I'll be like, well, the cards want you to know these things. If you're wondering about a relationship, but there's not one damn relationship card that came up in this whole reading, then we need to focus on your job. Maybe you're focusing too much on your relationship when you need to get your rest of your shit together. There's a lot of messages that the tarot wants you to know. And sometimes if you ask one thing, it'll want you to know something else. But I can be anywhere, and I have been doing probably more virtual readings through the pandemic especially. Now I'm getting back to reading people one-on-one, and it's way more intense because I'm like right there with the person, and I'm definitely feeling more. But I've had some pretty intense readings with someone virtually too. You know? I don't know. I just need to see the person. For me, some tarot readers can like people will direct message them and they'll say like, I'd like a reading on my love life or something. And then the tarot reader will pull cards and then I'll email them this long answer. That would be hard for me. I've texted with people from different countries, you know, like, and we go back and forth with, all right, I'm pulling this card now, and that's very time consuming. It's a pain in the neck. But I've done that. But don't really do the email because I need to have some type of connection with a person. I'd like to be able to look in their eyes, but I don't need to, you know. But the Reiki thing is pretty crazy, and it's all over the place. If you go on like TikTok or you go on Instagram and you go to Reiki, there are people doing Reiki services to other people virtually, and it just kind of proves the whole energy thing. I mean, how can we explain energy? How does energy work? Do you have to be together, or can energy just flow? If I'm trying to send you good vibes and be like, you're feeling better now, and all of a sudden you're like, I feel better now. I don't know. I mean, I know I said it in a funny way, but I believe in Reiki. I believe in all that stuff. But, you know, like doing it virtually, I don't know if I would. I think I would find a local Reiki person. But with tarot cards, I think it's just more like, I don't know. It's a little different. Yeah.
Are there any other questions or conversation topics anybody wants to bring up with Dave tonight?
Favorite cocktail out of the book? Which one?
Ooh,
Oh,
good question.
So many. I go back to the devil cocktail. I'll explain why. I recently made it, and the devil's all about indulgence and doing things that you shouldn't be doing, and maybe you got to live your life a little bit. And sometimes is a little bit of the devil too much? I don't know. You have to be playful, right? And I think have you ladies gotten into mezcal at all yet?
Love mezcal, and that was the first thing I thought of when you mentioned the devil's cocktail before, was mezcal.
Well, mezcal is like American moonshine, but it's the Mexican version of that. And back in the olden days, it would come with the worm, and people would think like, oh, you swallow the worm, you trip, you have a hallucinogenic experience, whatever. I don't know about that, but that was the whole thing. Now, after the whole tequila, revolution with George Clooney and Casamigos, the next thing, and I was all about this, I was like, we got to get in bed with some mezcal companies, because mezcal is going to be the next thing that they're going to distill, and they're going to make it better. They're going to make it less harsh. And there's now $50-$60 bottles of mezcal, which, if you think about it, is very funny because it's just kind of like moonshine, right? It's just like the dirt version of tequila. And we went to this like mezcal bar in, I want to say it was Brooklyn. And let me tell you, if you ever get a chance to find a mezcal bar, I think it was like Oaxaca Mexican food. And the food was great. It's just a little divey bar. And you're drinking mezcal out of these like clay kind of containers. And they brought out these, like, you know how with tequila you would drink like, you would have a lime and you would have like salt if you're doing a shot. Well, instead of that, with mezcal, there's dried bugs and there's oranges. So because it has such an earthy vibe, I think they were like ground up worms or crickets or grasshoppers or whatever. So the idea is you take a little, you put some on your finger, put it in your mouth, you get that earthy vibe, you take the shot of mezcal, and then you use the orange to sweeten things up. So that was an experience in of itself. And so with the devil, I did it myself. So I bought a very inexpensive bottle of Espolón tequila, which Espolón is a very, very good tequila. It's not very expensive. So I bought the Reposado, because that's what the drink called for. Reposado is kind of like the pinkish looking tequila. It was aged a little bit, but it's not as rich as the Añejo tequila. So the Reposado tequila is what the recipe calls for. I poured a little bit out, and I jammed it with jalapeno peppers. I let that sit for about a week. I opened it up and I was like, woo! You want to talk about like a spicy, spicy tequila. So that was the base for the devil, right? You have to have jalapeno infused tequila. You get that little half an ounce, and you don't need a lot of mezcal to really do the trick. But the interesting thing that Ryan came up with, the bartender, was something that is a little more methodical. You really have to do a little more work to get it, but it's the juice of a red bell pepper. Or it could be like a Thai chili pepper, it could be any red pepper. But he just used basic red bell pepper to have a little juicer. I juiced a red pepper. It only was like a half ounce for an ounce of it. Pour it in on the shaker and mix it all up. It adds a different color, and you could really taste that red pepper as well as you're going with the mezcal. Like you wouldn't think it comes through, but it comes through. And then I believe there's some agave syrup for a little bit of sweetness. And then the rim, we had sea salt and pink peppercorns. And you got your little, mortar and pestle, and you were like, pounding it away. And then you turn the glass upside down, and you line it with the lime, and you just have this beautiful pink rim on your glass. On my Instagram, I'm sitting there, and I didn't make it, but like I had to make it for a video. And I was just enjoying it. And I was like, wow, this is really good. So I'm just going to film myself enjoying a drink. Like how, presumptuous is that? But it was very funny anyway. But yeah, so that's a really good drink. But there are some really like bizarre ideas. And I try to make some witchy rituals too, because think about it. Every day when you wake up and you brush your teeth and you make your bed, it's a ritual, right? If you sent your intention as like, I'm going to have an amazing day, every time you made your bed and brush your teeth, same way every day, chances are, I believe, your day will be a little better. So why not make a cocktail like you would a cauldron, right? And put together your Eye of Newt and all this fun little witchy stuff and make it fun. Invite 3 or 4 of your friends. Do it on the night of a full moon. Make it an experience. Do this thing where you had to like do some prep work, where you had to infuse some rhubarb in some vodka or tequila for one of the drinks. You had to like puree something. I mean, have some fun with it. And then when you actually make it and you finally get it in your glass and you can cheers, embody that drink and that cocktail. And you will experience the energy because you've been working towards it. And that's all a ritual is. So I don't know. That's fun to me.
I love the idea of the red bell pepper juice, because that's also got to be kind of sweet too. Bringing a little sweetness in, well, as well as the agave syrup. But
it's funny how it smells so much like red pepper, and you're thinking, well, yeah, you're juicing it, but you bring it up, and as your little shot glass, you're pouring it into the shaker. You're like this is odd. And it's like, it smells so weird, and then you mix it all together, and it's just, wow, okay, it's great. And there's the tower drink, when I think the strawberry puree, I want to say it's the one with the rhubarb infused. I want to try that. That one's getting a lot of like, I want to try that. It's not the easiest one to make. And some, like the hangman, have like a prickly pear, right? And it's like the idea of the hangman is to look at the world and look at things differently. So you take one aspect of something and turn it on its ass. So let's use an ingredient that you would never think to really use in a cocktail form. So then we were thinking that's perfect for it. So it's a very simple recipe if you can get the prickly pear and you know how to use it. So, and we have definitions in the book that tell you how to make like, sage, simple syrup, and hibiscus, like that, what is it? There's like the one drink is like the Empress gin, which is purple. And there's like a special tea that turns things purple. I think it's like, it's called.
Eberry.
Thank you. Yes, something
butterfly.
Like that. Yeah, pea butterfly. Yep. So that's in some of the cocktails. And we want you to get like a really cool visual experience as well as just like a nice flavor drink, Yeah. But that's it. How many copies are you going to buy, Claire? Are you going to buy like 3 or 4? You give your friends, all your science friends. You could like
possibly.
There you go. Make them, get Bunsen burners and everything like that. It's the same thing as a cauldron, right?
Of course. Yeah, we're big cocktail fans, but here in Napa Valley, we indulge in wine a little bit more often. But yeah, we love tequila. And speaking of rituals, I think for us, it's often been a Friday evening, and we decide on some type of cocktail that we're going to make. And my husband used to bartend for many years, so
nice.
he's actually quite into making cocktails.
Nice.
So I was kind of excited actually with this book, and so yeah.
I appreciate it.
We'll have fun with it.
I also have to recommend, if you're into tequila and mezcal, Grand Electrica here in Napa has a really good tequila and mezcal list for people who are super into that stuff. And we've actually had an event with them because one of their margaritas was featured in a cocktail book, and the owner did like a cocktail demo, and they did drinks that you could pick up beforehand. I was very drunk for that event. I learned my lesson: don't drink before hosting an event. Nice. It was great fun, but I really had to go to the bathroom halfway through, and that was a disaster. But they made great cocktails as well. So if you pick up the book, and I do say, Dave says about gifts, if you haven't seen the book, it's really, really beautiful. It's black with this gold, like filigree on it. It's really gorgeous. They did a beautiful job with it. So it would actually be great for your coffee table, but also as a gift as well.
And I'm not just saying that because it's my book. They really did a good job.
It's really lovely. Let me see. I want to pull up like a big picture if I can find one. Because of course, now that we're doing these virtually, I'm not in the store and don't have it, then I can shove it in everybody's faces. But it's so pretty. Let me see if I can get this really quick before we all leave for the night. Okay, I'm gonna quickly share my screen so everybody can see it. Isn't that so pretty?
There you go.
So cool. And you have a tarot deck coming out too.
So the deck is called the Sugar Skull deck, and if you notice on the front of that book, the woman has a little sugar skull she's wearing, and that's what that whole thing. And obviously the sugar skull in the word tarot, but that picture is from the card The Star, and we just put her on the cover of the book. But yes, there will be a companion kind of deck called the Sugar Skull deck. You can pre-order it now on Amazon, and I think it's like if you buy it now, it'll be released September 28th, and it's just a Rider-Waite inspired deck and actually there's some cards that we completely have different imagery on. So I would say for most of the deck it's Rider-Waite, but some we definitely throw it on its ass. But it's a very light, colorful. I think it's a beautiful deck. The woman that we had do the illustrations from Mexico City, she did an amazing job. So you definitely feel that vibe in her work. And so yeah, you could buy them both together. You could buy them separately. They don't have to be together, but it's a nice little companion piece.
And you can also pre-order that deck from us. I just put the the link right in the chat for anybody who's interested in that as well.
Yeah, and follow me on Instagram, Tarot Tequila. I make daily posts, all positive stuff, and I'm making silly videos where I'm constantly embarrassing myself. So that's always fun.
Well, thanks so much, Dave. Any last words for us tonight as we sign off?
Oh, just bring the light, everybody. It's so much easier to be nice than pain in the ass. You know what I mean? That's all. That's the main overall message. It's too bad people don't get it, but we try. We try.
As a retail worker, I wholeheartedly endorse that sentiment. Be nice.
Be nice. It's not that hard.
Thank you everyone so much for joining us this evening. Again, we have Dave's book for sale, and you can pre-order his tarot deck from us as well. We will be put up the recording in a few days, and we'll make sure to get that video that's a little better in the audio. Sorry about that earlier tonight. Thank you so much, Dave. Thanks for staying up late with us.
You got it.
Thank you.
Everyone,
have a wonderful night, everybody. Bye.